guess we'll just kick it off per the beginning of our podcast. So however we want to do it.
Well, I'm Erin.
I'm Diego Albino Rodriguez Contreras. Let me do it again. Diego Albino Rodriguez Contreras.
And I'm Erin Mikhail Dvorak.
Yeah, we have to say full names. I think it's fun.
Okay. So anyway, we are doing this podcast because, for a lot of different reasons, but we decided to take a lot of our conversations online because I have like this purpose in life to help people think about love and how it is the remedy for so many things. And so we just want to tell stories from our lives and from other people's lives about the things that they've learned in their life, their relationships, and how they've grown through them. So today, we don't have a guest. We have each other.
Well, let's talk about a podcast a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, this is an ongoing project. And
ongoing, yeah.
Part of the project here is, like you said, talking about how love is the remedy, as the title. Mm-hmm. And we want to workshop some ideas as well as interview people. And to me, the workshopping of ideas is really important because Erin is a brilliant human being and she has helped me workshop so many different ideas. I've gotten so much clarity in talking to Erin, and it helps, of course, that Erin is Christian, so am I. So we have that common thread. And then beyond that, I've known Erin for a long time, so she's seen the relationships in my life, and she's seen me in the world of relationships in action. And I feel unique, and it's hard to say that about yourself, but it feels like I'm a unique person in that I really lean into my intuition when it comes to relationships.
Yeah, and that's something that we have explored a lot in our conversations. And, thank you for saying those things. You would think I would be amazing, but obviously I just went through a breakup, and so I don't feel so amazing at the moment. I'm looking at sort of all the things that I've yet to learn in relationship and have come so far. But so those are kind of some of the things we're just going to be honest about, talk about. And we were talking this week and you said, let's talk about this on the podcast. So what was it that you want to talk about today that was particularly interesting?
Well, before we get to that point, I want to say thank you to all of our listeners and subscribers. This is a podcast project. We're also releasing the video content on YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube, hello. And if you're listening to us, ¿cómo están? We're really grateful for your audience, for your time, for your energy. And today we're going to be workshopping the concept that I find to be really, really exciting. And before we dive into it, we have to give some context about this subject.
Sure, let's get some context.
How did we get here? How did we even learn or consider this topic?
So you were talking about this particular woman that your intuition is sort of guiding you to pursue. And we talked in another one of the videos, and we'll probably talk a lot about your intuition. And so this woman particularly isn't expressing interest in you in the same way. And so you have been reaching out to me to process because you are trying to understand what to do. You're trying to trust your intuition. It's guided you. It's never failed you in your life. But at the same time, you're being pursued by other women who actually want to date you, who are in your life, who are amazing women, who would give you all the time you need and want. But this particular woman isn't. And so you were kind of messaging me asking, I think you were saying something like, it's just hard. Like, you're a handsome young man, and you
Thank you.
You want to express yourself in relationship and things like that. But yet you have this one woman that your intuition is guiding you to focus on. So you're asking me, like, what do I do? Should I just go ahead and date all these other girls? Should I just enjoy kind of some time with them and not start this conversation?
Right, exactly. Thank you for the context.
Yeah.
I also appreciate you giving that context. I don't think I would have shared all that context.
Well, I told
But it was important. Is
that okay?
Why we're here today, this moment in time, is literally to have that authentic conversation.
Sorry, I don't want to embarrass you.
You're not embarrassing me. I'm
Okay.
grateful that you're honest and transparent about
Okay.
it. No embarrassment whatsoever. Just one of those things that I think as an individual you kind of guard yourself with some of these things.
Oh yeah, I understand.
However, that's why it's nice to have another person to talk to because you bring up the truth, the clarity. And just to recap, essentially, I also got out of a long-term relationship, partially, I would say mainly because of COVID and the pressure put on my previous relationship, and then
the stacks on stacks on stacks.
This concept we've talked about in the past.
That COVID just sort of exploded.
Yeah. And then as a consequence, I was trying to find the possibility of dating other people, and on the contrary, of me dating many people. It's guided me towards just one person. And as you've mentioned, she has made it clear she's not ready for a relationship with me. Maybe somebody else, but not Mr. the Albino Rodriguez Rodriguez, which is okay, by the way. I'm not.
Well, how could she say no?
I appreciate that.
How could she not be interested?
and I totally support her in her choice because I think relationships are a lot of work.
Yeah.
And whoever's going to be in a relationship with me needs to be in 100%, I think.
Oh,
and,
really?
And so,
interesting.
And so because I think that that's how relationships work, and we'll find out throughout this project if that's true or not, I don't want to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't want to be in a relationship with me just because of that. Okay, that's all the context we needed. Oh, go ahead.
But, well, I guess that'll gear off into the intuitive stuff. So we'll save that for your intuitive stuff a little bit different. So we were talking about, you want to talk about something.
Yeah, so today's topic, thank you for waiting, everybody. We've been building anticipation.
Build.
The idea is masculinity and femininity as it plays out in relationships. The context that we provided is important because that's how we got to this place of talking about these things.
Yeah.
It was basically figuring out, well, what is the masculine role in a relationship? What is the feminine role in the relationship? And something that you brought up, Erin, was basically that what I was doing was coming across as a very masculine role, and I was really surprised by that. And I said, can you tell me more about that? What do you mean I'm taking on a masculine role? And you said, well, it has to do with the fact that you're willing to listen and figure things out, and that's a masculine role. And I said, okay, so what are other examples of that? And that's really the genesis for our conversation, right?
Okay, so what did you want to talk about today?
Well, I think
what specific thing from our conversation were you particularly struck by? I mean, I think I know what I would like to say, but I'd like to hear from you so that I don't just assume.
Yeah, thank you. I think for someone who's a 33-year-old young attractive man, I would assume that I know what that is. Like, I know what it means to be a man in a relationship, what it means to be a woman in a relationship. Whether or not you...
What are your assumptions? Let's ask that. Like,
okay.
What do you bring to the conversation?
Right, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So we're in a time and place in this world where people can be gender fluid, which I think actually, my point of view on it is that that's okay. Some people and my friends don't like that idea, and I'm like, you know what, it's totally fine. However, what I do think is fascinating is that no matter what the roles are, or who's playing those roles, or who are those roles, I should say, there are still functions of masculine and feminine that have to be fulfilled. And what that definition is depends on the couple. I think couples have to sort of define that, and it's much easier if you have two people from the similar background because they don't have to workshop those ideas. Sure. They don't have to define it, it's already clarified. However, I think when those roles are not fulfilled, when either the feminine role is not being fulfilled in the relationship or the masculine role isn't being fulfilled, then you start having a lot of tension in the relationship, which is why often in relationships you have to have both. Now, I'm not saying that people can identify as one thing or the other, just that those functionalities have to occur. What really came to light for me was actually at the 2019 Sundance Film Festival. So I went to Sundance in 2019 with a good friend of mine. We watched a lot of films, and that seemed to be an interesting thematic message or conversation that was occurring in all the films I was seeing. Like, what is it to be a man in a relationship? What does it mean to be a woman in a relationship? And I saw that play out in the short films, not explicitly. It's not like people were like, oh, am I a man? Or nothing that obvious, but more like there was this tension. In one film called Coco Day, which is a really bizarre film, but well worth it. It really explores that. It's all about that. Like, when the man does not take on the masculine role, then that leaves this vacuum of power that the female has to fulfill, and then consequently anger,
bitterness,
and the female will fulfill it though. This is what was interesting.
Because someone has to.
Someone has to in the relationship.
Yeah.
And so in this film, it's a bit of a surreal film. It doesn't really ground itself in our reality, but what it does is it looks at it from sort of this sort of satire, more of a fable paradigm. And what it does is it illuminates how if you don't fulfill that role on the man's side, you start creating a lot of trauma and bad cycles and lack of trust and lack of stability. And in the film itself, it creates a cycle, and it's a really interesting film. I would recommend it. But that was one movie, and then there were other films that also dealt with gender roles. And then you started talking to me about how, in my situation, I was taking on the masculine role, and I was like, what does that mean? So,
wait, can I ask you one question though? I really want to ask you, what is the masculine role? Like, what do you think of? What is that? How does that play out? What does that look like? Were you getting to that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I just thought that was kind of an important framing for that idea. I know I do a lot of framing up of ideas.
You do lots of framing.
I do. I know. Yeah. I just think that's really important sometimes in some of these deep conversations. And who knows? I could be wrong. But so like,
no, you're fine.
That's what came up there. And then when it came to your earlier question, which is what does it mean like that for me? Well, I think that based on those movies that informed some insights that I maybe already had, being on the fact that I'm from a different country entirely.
Yeah, and a whole different culture.
A whole different culture, donde la gente habla otro idioma, where people have grown up in a different language, where people are just different. And in that world, in that country, in all of South America and Central America and North America, Mexico, of course, is part of North America, things work. So my idea of being masculine is informed by a lot of things. That's why I guess give you all this context, is that if I were a typical white dude who grew up in America, nothing wrong with that, or even a typical minority man who grew up in America, my paradigm would be a particular one, right? Well, it's not. For me, it's been informed by certainly films, but two different cultures. I look at it like in a relationship, the man's role is to provide for the female. And the simplest...
Provide financially?
I think either financially, emotionally, support, be essentially bedrock for his female companion, in whatever that looks like. But you are the foundation in the relationship. The expectation is you're going to be there, be stable, be steady, be supportive of her, guide her where necessary.
When she goes crazy?
No, not at all. No,
I love it when women are called crazy.
Women are very, I've never looked at it that way. And again, this comes from the fact that I'm from a different culture. So in the culture I grew up, women are very strong.
Okay.
They're very loud.
Okay.
And they're generally very clear about what their feelings are. Interesting note, that's not true for all of Mexico. That's true probably for a middle class, lower middle class type of socioeconomic status. However, as you move up into the upper class in Mexico specifically, it starts to emulate what you see here in America, which is that people don't like to talk about things as much. But from what I grew up in, the man's role is to provide, to support, to create stability in his capability, and the female's role is to provide thoughtfulness, guidance, feedback, some navigation, and provide insight to maybe what the man would otherwise not see. So it really is this sort of duality from both of them, but they're working together. They're working off of each other's strengths and providing for one another to succeed. Of course, the goal is to raise children, so that's a big thing, but beyond raising children, it's having life together, a secure financial life, a secure emotional life, and being thoughtful about what it is that the man may not see. Because I think as guys, not all men are this way, but I have been this way, where you get your blinders on and you're just after this one thing, and you want to have a partner who can help see what you can't see, support you in those things, and then also ideally give you insight or help you on some of those tasks. But knowing that you have to be the person that's going to make some of the hard choices, who's going to be there for her, and also be willing to take on as a man some of the feminine roles as well. If the guy is having a hard time, experiencing that, talking to his wife about that, and knowing that she's going to be there for you. Because I think that the American idea is very John Wayne-esque, where you don't open up, you just are the tough dude, like tough as brass. You don't open up at any other point except maybe to when you're hanging out with your guy friends. But beyond that, your woman never sees how vulnerable you are. And I look at it like the man also.
Well, I don't know that a lot of men open up when they're with their guy friends and are vulnerable.
I'm saying that might be the only, if they do it, that would be the only space in which they would do it. Definitely not with their female.
Oh, I see.
Like
Really?
I would say a lot.
Because that's not.
Yeah, that's the way I've seen it.
Different.
Is that guys would open up with their homies, with their best friends, but not maybe with their partner, because they don't want the partner to see the weakness. With your guys, you can kind of open up. Now, you're not going to open up like, hey, Bob, I had a hard day at work. Is it okay if I cry on your shoulder? It's going to be more like, I hate this, I hate that, drinking, arguing, but you do it in a different context.
I see.
But anyway, so yeah, that's what the masculine is. The feminine role, like I said, is really about the support, but also the direction. I think women are very insightful, and so I think leaning on them for guidance, for thoughtfulness, and providing insight into things that men may not necessarily pick up on. And you have to have that sort of shared relationship. And then finally, you don't have to have them be static. This isn't a static environment, it's dynamic.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of shifting of roles from time to time as needed. However, if those two things are not being fulfilled, I think the relationship, it's like an engine, it doesn't work anymore and it breaks down. So that's my point of view.
So there's a lot of different things that you talked kind of like the external, which is like the financial piece, the, sort of knowing what his purpose is in the world and like pursuing it. What about her, so there's that piece, but then there's also sort of the internal piece where you mentioned something like in your viewpoint of masculine and femininity, he's, or whoever's playing the masculine role in the relationship, has to be more of a stable, like a rock or emotionally for that person. So how does that, I mean, like you said, it's got to be dynamic. It can't be static. So like, let's just say he is a little emotional and needs to open up. How does that, then does she take on a masculine role at that point, in that moment?
I think she takes on more of a motherly role.
A motherly role.
Yeah. I think, which is okay. I think that to a certain degree,
Like comfort kind
yeah.
of you, it's like encouragement. You're amazing.
Yes.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Remind you of all you've done this far.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Exactly that kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. I think that those are the things that occur and that are kind of needed. I think.
And that's intimacy to me. I think that's like a beautiful moment of like pure intimacy that like that's what the two people can offer each other. Just like from the, like we're talking the male perspective right now, that you wouldn't get anywhere else, and you shouldn't get anywhere else.
That's an interesting point, Erin. Interesting that you shouldn't get.
That's where I'm coming from. That's my background and my perspective.
And now we have, and I think it's really interesting jumping off. Let's pause on that one because there is a whole deeper dive into this concept. I think that yes, that's exactly right. And so does that mean that sometimes you have a shifting of power dynamics? Absolutely. Sometimes the guy is quote unquote in charge, whatever that means, in a healthy way to the partner. And then if there's challenges, there's a need for maybe shifting that power dynamic where then he relies on his partner to support
But then
him.
that like kind of like feeds him and fuels him, gives him strength to kind of like go back, do his next level and go back out into the world and do whatever he's doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a very traditional mindset.
It is. And being that I'm from a very Catholic sort of background and country, particularly Mexico is known for being perhaps a little bit more prude than the other countries of Latin America.
It's surprising to me because when I was in Mexico City, like people were rolling around in the park. Like
you should go to Venezuela, Argentina.
So what do you mean prude? Because to me, I loved being there because everybody was super. My experience when I went to Mexico City a couple times was that everybody was super like open and warm and public, affectionate publicly. Whereas like here, we're not making out on park benches. As you like, it's a little like take it to the bedroom, kind of. Yeah. So in Mexico, that's so surprising to me when you say that. Like people are more prude
relative to Latin America. Like the guy.
Oh, you mean in Mexico?
Yeah, the country of Mexico.
Okay.
Now, also Mexico City is unique in the sense that, relative to the country, that it is much more liberal than the rest of the country is.
I see.
So, as is common, I think, in a lot of places in the world, the more urban, the more liberal. And so Mexico City is a very liberal city. Meanwhile, the rest of the country is maybe not as much.
I see.
And the part of Mexico I'm from is Guanajuato, which is close to Mexico City. So
Guanajuato.
So it's within the influence, And so anyway, but relative to the rest of Latin America, it tends to be more prude. Like we as Mexicans tend to be a little bit more aware of how we want to like be perceived. We may be a little bit more formal about the courting process, which I know to you is a surprise. Yeah. Whereas in Venezuela and Colombia, it's not necessarily as formal. And I think part of that stems with our relationship with Spain and how there's imperialism there and how we related to the power structure there.
Okay, but let's talk about you then.
Yeah.
So let's get back to you.
I love how little I love how little you care about it.
Actually, I care a lot about it, but I just want to come back to you.
Okay, sure.
Because I love how heady you can get and how well studied you are and kind of interested in all that. I think it's all very important because we have to look at what brings us into relationship generationally and culturally and stuff like that. Here? Yeah, how did we get here? So we have to look at those things. But so I want to get back to here, which is this week, which is sort of the masculine thing, feminine thing that we were talking about. So can I mention the thing? So you were talking about trying to make some decisions about whether you should just sort of not focus on this girl, maybe start dating some other girls, enjoy a relationship. And I was like, you can do whatever you want. So whenever you talk to me about things, I'm always kind of, you say workshop, I say process. We're always working things out like that. But in the end, I'm always going to say, trust your intuition, Diego, because I believe that if we have to tune into ourselves and into God, especially God, for direction in our life, because otherwise we make really, really difficult and bad choices that can really hurt us, which I have a lot of experience doing. But not because I wasn't trying to go in a good path. It was just kind of, that's a whole other story. But for you particularly, I always say, I might like throw my opinions out and kind of throw my insight out. But in the end, I'm always like, well, Diego, you're telling me for the last 6 months that your intuition, tested by prayer, tested by asking, God for direction, by all of these things, is telling you to focus on this girl who is kind of chatting with you, but not, making herself totally available to you and all that. So I'm like, well, Diego, if that's what you feel like your path is, then why would you spend time with these other girls? To me, that's a waste of your energy, and it's not serving your highest purpose, which at this point in your life is to put your energy towards this one person. And to me, I was saying, like, that's a very masculine thing to do, to control your passions, to be able to, or not control, but to master them, I would say, and to kind of know, what you're, to stay in line with what you feel your direction is based on not just whims and emotions, but off of what you, and I've asked you over and over, are you sure you're praying to God? Are you sure it's not demonic influence? Are you sure it's like all the, like, and are you sure it's clear and it's pure? And you're like, yeah, Erin, because every time I try to veer off of it, I feel like it's not right. And so I'm always like, okay, well then to me, it's a masculine thing for you to kind of have all this potential energy that you could be getting, some immediate needs met, some enjoyment and things like that. But in the long run, does it serve what you feel your path is? And to me, that's a masculine thing, to be able to sort that out and say no to certain things and be able to like focus on this one person who you feel God is guiding you towards, or your intuition.
How is that masculine? Not that I disagree. I'm just curious.
It's focused, I think. How is it masculine?
Yeah.
I think if it's not, I think it's like it's like refining you or helping you for if it's not right now, but if this relationship with this one woman kind of plays out, or if you at some point feel guided toward a different direction, it's helping. To me, it's a masculine thing to kind of, like some of these other girls that are around aren't probably going to be, I don't know.
Say it.
I don't know.
Say it.
I don't know what you know. You say it.
Probably not going to work out.
I don't know.
I like that. You're like, I don't know either.
I guess to answer your question, to me, it seems like a very masculine thing to be working on your own internal orientation for what your purpose is and who might best be a good partner for that. And so to me, learning how to kind of think through what potentially could be distraction or suck your energy out of you, to me is a very masculine thing to do, because you're like focused and do I sound like an idiot right now?
No, I'm very...
I know you're interested in it.
Yeah, I'm very just like blown away by it.
Why?
I think it's because beyond, I gave a definition, I didn't include any of that.
I know you didn't.
And that's not to say that I feel like my definition wasn't okay. It's just that I go, wow, you're so right.
Oh, I am?
Yeah, it just feels so right.
It does.
Yeah, when you say it, it just feels like a truth bomb that I've got to just process and think about. And I'm like, wow, that's so true.
And it's hard for you. I mean, it's hard because, it doesn't make sense logically.
Well, no, to me, at least the way that I guess I perceived it in pop culture, being masculine meant hooking up. Get it going.
Oh, that's what you thought.
Yeah.
Pop culture masculinity. I don't even talk about pop culture
Don't
masculinity.
hold back. Everybody say party time. Did I get tested? I got that thing. It's not a big deal. Why does it burn when I go to the bathroom?
I'm totally not interested in that. So that's what you thought, and like masculinity was?
Well, no, that's not what I thought.
Like before?
No. I'm just more so saying, like, in the context of those two choices. If someone had said, okay, choice A.
So it's counterculture. I like it.
It's counterculture. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, it's very counterculture. And I don't disagree with you either. I'm not saying that you're wrong, because when you say it, it feels real. I've never done what I thought pop culture masculinity was for a number of reasons. I am a very sensitive person, and in the little bit that I tried to date someone, it was really painful. And it really messed with me on a deep level, on a spiritual, emotional, psychological level. Like, everything of who I am as a person in this dimension, all dimensions, was affected by it. And I was like, this is a lot. Like, I lost way more than I gained. And is this worth it to me in the long run? And I thought, I can't sustain this. Like, maybe if I drank more, if I
numb yourself.
Did some drugs to numb my pain, my anxiety, my agony. But instead I was like, I'm just going to sit with this and learn what I can. And it hurt a lot. Probably 6 months after this relationship occurred, the same person, she reached out and said, hey, I'm ready for a relationship. At that point I wasn't. I was like so over it. But I was like, wow, I thought we were supposed to be together, and she was older than me, and there were all kinds of challenges. But that was the brief
That's another conversation.
Yeah, that was the brief experience I had. It was so painful. And I thought, but every guy I know does this. Why can't I be like every other dude out there? And meanwhile, at that time, I was just out of college. I was pretty broke, so I wasn't getting a lot of attention from women. And part of it is I'm sure I wasn't as confident as I am now. And now I am confident, and I'm doing well in my career, and I'm going to continue to do well. So now it's different. Now I actually have that possibility. And I'm like, man, old Diego's not so bad looking. Old Diego maybe has a little bit of a chance here, fulfilling these things that he always thought he wanted to do.
You're the internal dialogue of men, of boys.
Yeah, I like that you said boys, because it's like, that wouldn't be that hard. Now, given I'm Christian, so obviously there are reasons why I don't want to engage in that. And
so I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the cultural, all the different kind of approaches to masculinity and femininity. But what about the Christian perspective? You're non-denominational, or what are you?
Yeah, non-denominational Christian.
Non-denominational Christian.
Yeah.
So what, from that perspective, how do the roles play out?
I think that what was really cool was at a sermon, they were talking about how men are supposed to be in charge of the relationship.
When you say in charge, that's a trigger.
It is a trigger.
Trigger warning.
Trigger warning. Do. Okay.
But I think you're on. I think there's some things to unpack with that.
There is.
That are true and right.
Well, that's what the sermon was about. Actually, it was saying,
in charge.
Yeah, like managing, like sort of in the power dynamic, the head of the household.
So when I grew up, we called it leadership.
Leadership. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's in charge, kind of like we're gonna get into doormat wife. We're gonna get into or Stepford wife. We're gonna get into like she has no brain. We don't talk to her. We don't. And
that's
include
literally
her.
what the sermon was about, was to orient us outside of that.
Sorry, did you hear me just pipe up there?
No, I'm glad you did. I'm always grateful that you do, Erin. I think it's really, I love hearing from you. So it was just that was the topic of the sermon, was literally to say, hey, this is what the Bible says, and let's unpack it and say it's not what you just said. Like literally it's the opposite.
Right.
That on the man it is the responsibility to take on those roles and to be kind, compassionate, thoughtful, forgiving, graceful, and really considerate of his partner. And if he's not doing that, he's abusing the power that he's been given.
Okay.
And that to me was pretty eye-opening. Of course, I was in church with my former partner watching that, and she and I chatted about it after the fact. And it was just a really cool sermon to talk about that is biblically what's there and it's supposed to be followed, and at the same time to really understand what that entails for the man. It's a big responsibility. It's not carte blanche to do whatever you want. It's more like this is something you've got to do well, and often in the body of Christ, it helps us to be in communion with others to discuss some of these things. And
other men who are kind of making the same effort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think doing it in small groups, whether you're with your wife, your girlfriend, fiance, or whether you're doing it actually with an all men's group. So actually, in the past, I've been a part of 2 men's group concurrently, and technically I'm still in both of them right now, but I've been so busy with trying to make sense of COVID and all that stuff. But yeah, I've been in 2.
And all the ladies.
And all the ladies, all the beautiful.
I'm going to tease you.
As you
all
should.
The blonde, beautiful.
All the blonde, beautiful. If you're just listening to the podcast, you're not seeing this, I do like blondes. And Erin is not a blonde. Does not
Mexicans and their blonde ladies.
Does not mean to say that I don't think Erin is not very attractive. I'm just saying she's not blonde. No, but I think so that's the context, sort of within the concept of being a Christian, what that entails. At the same time, I was also atheist for a long period of my life.
That's a great story.
And so I was aware of the pop culture thing. But even as an atheist, I was never engaging that behavior. And I'll tell you why. Aristotle, I know. So I got really into philosophy, and that's why I didn't do that stuff.
What was the philosophy behind it?
Well, essentially, if I had to simplify it, is virtue leads to reward, vice leads to destruction. It's as simple as that.
It's a spiritual concept.
It's something
across probably many religions.
Religions, philosophies.
This
is essentially not so much Aristotle. I mean, it plays out in Epicureanism, which I know is a fun word.
I don't even know what that means.
Okay, which results in the word Stoic and all this other stuff. But the whole thing of especially Greco-Roman philosophy, is that you do good things happen. You want to be a virtuous person. You're rewarded by doing that. If you have vices, then you're destroying yourself and others. That's the core concept. And so I really believed that. And I have my whole life, right? And that's what affected whether or not I made the choices. But at the same time, I was aware of what other guys were doing, and they seemed to be having a good time, right?
It's fake.
They seemed to be enjoying themselves, and that was cool, and I wanted to be cool like them. What I have observed, which to me is interesting, is that it does seem to take a toll on you at some level. But with what I want to do in my life, it just seems like I don't want to pay a toll at all. I'm not interested in it. The challenging thing is, as a man, you have certain drivers, and so consequently you're like, oh, I'm single, where do I channel that energy?
Yeah.
And I think then therein lies the challenge.
That's what I was hitting on this week when we were chatting over text.
Yeah.
Just saying, get back to who I know, like who you are and you're trying to be. You're off right now because I know that you absolutely can enjoy any of these. You have the freedom to do that. Like nobody could say to you, I would never judge you. I would never tell you, I would never judge any of these girls. I would never say, oh, she's not good enough for you. Have I ever said any of that?
No, of course not.
I never talk to you like that. I always just process like who you are, what you're trying to do, and bring you back to like sort of your center. And to me, that's a very masculine thing to do. I mean, it's probably like just a good spiritual or like a growth thing to do for any, like even females too. But it probably looks a little different for us, maybe. I don't know. I have to talk about that. But for you, I just thought, wow, I mean, what a lucky woman eventually who has someone in her life who has already kind of honed all that in.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think
that builds trust.
Yeah.
In the relationship. And if that's, depends on what kind of relationship people are trying to have. There's all different ways people are having relationships. And so I guess it just depends on like what kind of relationship you're trying to have. But I like that you didn't just come from it from a Christian perspective, because I grew up in the church, in the non-denominational, and it was all external. So it was nothing that those kinds of decisions were nothing that I ever could like make for myself. It was all because I was pleasing everybody and trying to be a good Christian girl. And so therefore I went on a really long journey kind of back home to sort of these sentiments. And so, yeah.
Well, and I appreciate you being that mirror, and I think that's my hope is for this podcast, for people listening or people watching, is I hope that ideally this functions a little bit like a mirror where you can self-analyze what's going on, what works for you and what doesn't. Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, sorry, I went off track a little bit. What I was trying to say is like, I like that you didn't just say, well, I came to this conclusion because I grew up in church and God says, I like that, you brought in sort of the philosophy. Even when you were the atheist, you sort of noticed that these were decisions that people were making and reflecting on what you want for your own life. And that made it more internal for you. It wasn't sort of an external kind of behavior you were trying to play. It was something that was very true to who you are, which I think is what we all need to sort of, that's true growth. That's true sort of being a true, authentic human being.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Well, and I think just thank you for saying that, because I think that some of this stuff, I know a lot of this stuff, you just do by yourself.
Yeah.
And it's very lonely, and you're just like, why do I care so much about these things? Everyone else doesn't seem to care.
Not everybody does, but you're Diego. What's your name?
So Diego
Albino, which means white.
Albino. It's a Saint Albinus.
Oh.
And back in the day, people would pray, side note, tangent, people would pray to this saint if you were kidnapped in a tower. So if there was a woman, a damsel in distress in a tower, you would pray. Allegedly, he helped a tower collapse. So there you go. That's what some of the things that Albinus can do.
So you helped the tower collapse that the woman is.
Yeah.
You could go in a whole
other thing.
Journey on that.
And then the second one was if there are pirates involved, you pray to Saint Albinus and he helps resolve the situation. Very specific saints in the Catholic Church.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So anyway, albino or albino is how you might pronounce it based on how it's spelled. However, it's pronounced albino.
Albino.
So if I was going to say it with the American accent here, it would be Diego Albino Rodriguez Contreras.
Oh, so you have another last name.
My mom's
But you go by Rodriguez.
Yeah, which is typical of all folks, at least from Mexico, I think rest of Latin America as well.
Contreras.
That's my grandfather's last name.
Okay.
So
on your
mom's side.
So Rodriguez is your dad's last name?
It is.
Okay, got it.
And
That's great.
Yeah, so you can have that.
I did more of that over here. I had such an identity crisis when I changed my name when I got married.
So, okay, we've covered really good ground, and I think that we've gotten to some really good points.
Yeah, good conversation.
Good conversation. Let's talk about, before we wrap this up, on what it means to be feminine and what happens when the male does not fulfill his masculine role in a relationship.
Yeah, I think that's, are you specifically talking sort of on the emotional level or the socioeconomic level? there's so many different.
Yeah, let's ground it with a specific situation. So say that I'm in a relationship with somebody and I'm not taking on the masculine roles.
Like leadership kind of guide, like checking in with the relationship,
Yeah, processing.
where we headed, how we doing.
Yeah, I'm not fulfilling any of the things we defined, or what you talked about, which is having the focus. Like I'm just a
Ears
dude.
all over.
Maybe I'm coasting a lot.
Sure.
I drink a lot. I'm not really around. Emotionally, I am physically maybe there, but.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Any scenario.
Yeah.
What question? Like, you just
what happens? Yeah, let's say.
I think that what happens is resentment comes in over time.
Resentment comes in.
What happens is she will ask for it. Naturally, the feminine person, the female person, will ask for it, and she will ask. She will start to beg and plead, and then if he's not sort of a conscious, sort of intentional person in the relationship, then and sort of hears her when she comes to him with something like, hey, like, Diego, this is kind of bothering me, and give you the opportunity to solve, to think through, to not just fix, but to hear the concern about the relationship or something that maybe seems off, and sort of, he might, a lot of times men will dismiss it. That's not what you think. That's not a big deal. That's not important. Why do you're not thinking about it right? And she's here saying, no, this is what I'm thinking. So, and I'm here to process with you. Maybe I am not thinking about this in the right way, but can you sit with me and don't tell me I'm wrong, don't tell me I don't think this way. So that kind of, if that isn't the kind of the foundation of the relationship, then what happens is she will get resentful, she will not feel heard, she'll get bitter, she'll get louder, she'll get angry, she'll have meltdowns, emotional meltdowns. She will become sort of a person, I think, depending on how she can either walk away, she has that choice, but typically women will try to stay and work it out for a very long time because they usually are with someone because they love them. And that drives a lot of our kind of willingness to stick it out, and try to work it out. But over time, if this happens, then she will become really angry, resentful. It could play out, she might not want to be sexual with him anymore. She might not want to share her, self with him. And I just think it just sort of, things start to become dysfunctional. And it's hard to kind of unroll that, roll that back. Once it gets to a pretty difficult place. I think I'm always full of hope, and I think that if two people kind of come to this, if it's so bad, but then people are like, well, let's figure this out. There's story after story after story of reconciliation and things like that. But if you're talking about just specifically the feminine, I think that's what happens. I think women get loud, we get angry if we're not loved well, and then I mean, I've had this happen in my own life. I was married, and there was some of this dynamic that played out there, and it was like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'll do it. Someone has to do it, right? So we get tough. We don't get soft. We get tough. We get out there. We start to fight fights.
Someone has to do it.
Someone has to do it. If you're not going to do it, someone has to do it. So I'll just do it, and then we take on everything, and then we aren't kind of this sort of gift that we should be to our partner.
It's really profound.
Is it?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think because from the uninformed masculine point of view, when those things happen, we don't know why they happened. We're just like, hum-ho, this is great. I've got an attractive girlfriend, wife, fiance, whatever. Life is phenomenal. I did it. My work is done. I got the hot chick. We're set. My mom has met the hot chick. This is good. We are golden. Okay. Now I can go back to just being a dude. I can be the dude I always wanted to be because boxes checked. I don't have to be, I'm going to say hi to her. How you look good, honey. All that, I'll do the minimum, and I'm going to go back to being a dude. And then a lot of dudes are like, whoa, why isn't it working? Why is this so hard? She's got what she needs. She's got this, this, and this. Oh, here we go again. She's going to talk about this thing. And so a lot of guys, I think, we're kind of not wanting to tune in.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I appreciate that honesty because not many men would be that honest. And I think it's important to be honest about that because that is what happens. Like, guys love to pursue. We feel amazing. Oh, he loves me. He's pursuing me. He thinks I'm beautiful. He thinks I'm special. And then that seems to happen where, like, just exactly that same scenario. It's kind of like, well, I got her. Now I want to refocus on, like, let's say you want to refocus on, like, your career. Well, I've got her. She's here. I'm going to put all my energy on my career or all these things. And I think it's important to learn how to kind of do it all if you're going to be in a relationship. Like, and the thing that I want to say is if you do that piece well, she will give you whatever you want. If she's kind of into the relationship and into growing and into, like, and she's like a good, good person, not just sort of messed up and using you, because, like, that happens. Like, women sometimes use men, and there's that whole dynamic. But we're just kind of talking, like, sort of idealistically, like what the heart of all of this is. And I think that when men are really sort of doing that well, then it doesn't take a lot. So that's the problem. Like men will get overwhelmed with all of this, like, once it gets to that point where, like, she's like, and you never, and I need, and why don't you? And, like, she's just melting down. And he's like, dude, she's a mess. I'm going to go do this thing. And yes. It doesn't take much. Like, this is what I don't think men understand is, like, it doesn't take much to settle that down. It really doesn't.
It feels like a lot.
I know.
I think here's the thing though, I actually haven't, but I can put myself in those shoes. If I'm a guy, maybe you're not doing the work, I'm going to be like, wow, homegirl is mad. Reminds me of my mom. Don't need this right now.
Reminds me of my mom.
You know what I'm doing? I'm going to kick it with Joe over here.
Yeah.
Joe doesn't get mad at me.
Yeah.
Joe drinks like I do.
Or this other girl who doesn't get.
Other girl who is, by the way, a little younger, a little more available. And suddenly.
Doesn't expect anything of me.
Yeah.
She thinks I'm amazing.
I'm amazing as I am.
Yeah. I'm amazing.
I'm a cool dude.
You're not respecting how amazing I am.
Do you know how amazing I am? And then, the relationship is.
Yeah. And I think it doesn't take much to sort of tune that, to bring that down. And I think there's a beautiful, like, I'm a Christian too. And so sometimes I go back to the Bible and I, like, look for things. And there's this beautiful line. I suck at references.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I have some friends who are, like, encyclopedic about it. They're like, this versus that, and I'm just like, I understand that it's there.
I mean, if I was planning an essay, I would.
Definitely. If we had it,
But there's a line that says, "He quiets me with His love," and it's talking about God, right? So God quiets us with His love, and it's the same dynamic. Like, we can quiet each other. So if we're being not ourselves, if as a women we're being out of control, look at what love is. Look at like you were talking about those things earlier. I don't know if we were filming yet, but we were talking about, you were talking about here, like kindness, compassion, understanding, meeting that person where they're at. Like, it goes both ways. Like, women have to do this for men too. And we often have standards for our men that we need to learn to how to love them better, like, especially in those weak moments like you were talking about, or vulnerable moments, not necessarily weak. I think that was totally the wrong word to say. Vulnerable moments where they might be feeling weak. We love those moments, by the way. Like, we're like, oh, like, we feel valuable, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm just saying, like, when men are loving women well, if they're specifically talking about calming us down and understanding, like, that moment of chaos and that moment of stress, if men are truly turned into, like, understanding what love really is and how God loves us and what that really means, not like hippie love, like, love everybody, like, really in these moments, these hard moments, what does it mean to love that person? Like, when they are obviously off who they are, and to quiet that person, to quiet her, bring her back, she will feed you chips and salsa. She will wash your feet. She will do whatever. Like, you're her. Like, she's like, she belongs to you if men figure that out.
Okay.
I mean, she kind of belongs to you anyway. Like, we work at relationships, but if you're just kind of trying to understand, like, that dynamic and what happens, then the beautiful way to respond is, like, maybe you do need a minute. Like, I cannot handle this right now, but I'll come back and figure it out.
So let's give some tactile things for people listening and watching.
Sure.
Like, say I am in this situation, and we need to do this before we wrap up this whole conversation for the women's side of it too, but
Okay.
say I am said individual, and then I'll workshop one of my situations, but let's just say for the general individual, I have been messing up, didn't realize it.
What do you mean messing up? Like we're all just like figuring things out.
Yeah, okay,
How about that?
Okay, well, I'm in a scenario, I'm figuring things out, I didn't
Yeah.
realize what was going on. Suddenly I've got my partner very angry at me,
Sure.
yelling about something that
Yeah.
I've actually heard 3 times.
Right.
This is the first time I've heard it at this volume.
Sure.
How do I quell that anger?
I think know your partner, because I mean I can speak sort of general, but I think in each one of us, like we really need to know like each other. So if you spend time like understanding her, your intuition will kick in and you'll kind of like know what she needs in that moment. What she doesn't need is for you to leave. What she doesn't need is for you to tell her she's crazy or she's being irrational or she shouldn't be so emotional. What she probably needs, and I have a son, he's 13, and what I've tried to do is it's very counter-human. I mean, it's like you have to figure out how to pull from a different source, not our human flesh. Like when he is out of control, like sometimes I get it right and sometimes I get it wrong, but what I've always tried to approach my relationship with him is if he is flying off the handle with his emotions and he's upset and all these things, I go, ever since he was little, I'm like, first, do you need love? Like I know what he's crying for. He's crying for connection. He's crying to be loved. Like he might be yelling at me because his Legos are, a mess. But I think that same kind of thing is like I try to draw him close to me physically. He's a physical guy. All women might not be this way. So again, like it's kind of just like know who you're with, and kind of figure that out. Like ask her that question. What would work for you in that scenario? And if she tells you, be capable of doing it. And if you're not, then just know that these situations are going to keep happening because she's not going to feel like loved. So I think when you can guide fundamentally, like figure out like what's going to connect us right now, what's going to connect her back to me. Me going and hanging out with the homies right now isn't. But you could work it out between you two and be like, okay, when you get like this, I can't think clearly, so I'll usually need like a good hour or 3. But I will come back and I'll, and just set some clear expectations. And then she has to be willing to like sort of adjust to that too. And be like, okay, yeah, so like Diego, I know I'm being this way. I know I'm at a place, but I can trust that he's going to come back and we're going to talk. If she can't trust that you're going to come back and work through it and figure it out, then you keep disintegrating trust.
Trust is a really big one.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing here is know your partner.
Yeah.
Use your intuition a bit to figure it out.
Sure.
Communicate like what you need in order to succeed in this.
Yeah.
How do I, as a guy, talk to a woman and also let her know that I am not blowing her off? I just need her to calm down.
Telling her to calm down.
Oh, I know.
When you're upset, if someone says to you, calm down, Diego.
I'll be like, okay, maybe we need to calm down.
Oh, so you can do that.
Well, just because I think though that like it's different because I think guys have been told their whole lives to like reel your emotions in. Yeah, as a young boy to adolescent, we have a lot of markers, or I should say perhaps points in our lives where people have told us to calm down.
Okay.
So a lot of the American thing, now again, I'm not 100% just American, I'm also a different culture, but
sure.
The American experience here is like, don't feel those emotions, kid. Swallow your emotions, eat your emotions. So if someone is telling you to calm down, most guys, can't speak for everyone, but most guys are going to be like, maybe I should.
So that's why it works. So that's why you guys say it, because it works for you.
Yeah, if I have a buddy,
interesting.
if I have a buddy who's freaking out, I'm like, dude, calm down right now, Joey. I can't handle this right now. Every time. And then my other buddy's like, is going to be like, yeah, Joe, cool it, dude. Or Chad's going to be like, yo, that's not, bro, you got to.
Chad.
We have, whatever. So we have, I guess, amongst our guy friends, you might say that, like, hey, calm down, or dude, chill out a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I do see that online a lot. Chill, bro.
Yeah, chill,
hey,
bro.
Hey, it's all good, bro.
Broski.
I suppose some girls calm down, but I think when you're in like a real relationship, like that's when it gets real.
Yeah, and you don't want to say that.
Happen.
So it seems like also what I'm getting at, this idea that comes up a lot in our society, which is we should learn not to listen to fix it. We should listen so we can listen. right? That's kind of, you talked a little bit about that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes she wants a fix and sometimes she doesn't. I mean, sometimes I want a fix. Like, like sometimes it's like, how do we fix this? I might be a little different than, I mean, that's again why I'm saying, like, if you have a partner, figure each other out, you know, like you can't say, well, like nobody listening to us could be like, oh, okay, well, Diego and Erin said do this.
Right.
I mean, I think the bottom line is like really know your partner, and you're gonna have a first fight. So then figure out what happened after that first fight and then talk through it. And if you can't communicate, like get some help. Like, you know, I think communication is huge. And that's where a lot of relationships kind of go south.
Communication takes time and energy.
Yeah, it does. So, you know, if you want the good stuff, you have to put in the time and energy of it.
Put in the work. Okay.
Yeah, communication. But like in the moment, I think if it was me, I always want someone to draw me near. I love you, Erin. I'm here. You know, I'm not going anywhere. And like if we're in person, just like I'm a physical person, so I want someone to like be strong and kind of help me get myself together, you know, in a physical, like just hold me. And then I can soften, and then I can get through outside of my own emotions and then through to like understand your perspective and then mine. But a lot of times we can't get that far. And if you're not in person, if you're over the phone or something like that, then I don't know, like some kind of anchoring kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
I just know what not to say.
Yeah, no, totally.
I don't know that I've had I don't know that I've had a lot of experiences on like what is good.
Right.
Like
well,
in that moment.
I've filmed a lot of workshops when it comes to couples therapy.
Oh, you have? Okay, so you've learned some things.
So I've learned some things.
It's all like external though.
Yeah, they're just techniques that work well. And I think there's this guy named, I think John Gottman, who's this very established psychologist. And I was actually able to meet him for one of the things I was filming. And they brought up this metaphor of paddling and how like in a partnership, you're paddling together. And sometimes you do all the paddling, and that's how it is. And you're doing the paddling on behalf of your partner, male or female, and then sometimes they do all the paddling. At some point, though, both of you need to do the paddling. You both need to be doing the work.
You both do.
And at some point, if you're not both doing the work, you got to tell your partner. If they're really not willing to do the work, relationships are going to fall apart.
Yeah, it's going to be really hurtful.
It's going to be really hurtful, yeah. And then to the communication techniques, this is just a simple one, but the fast food communication, which is to say, like, someone says something and you repeat it back to them to make sure you heard them.
Yeah, the mirror thing.
The mirroring.
Yeah, I think that's something I've totally failed in my relationships.
Yeah, and I'm not very good at it either. I also know that.
I mean, it's great to talk about it, but it's hard to implement when you're in those moments.
It's hard to implement in those moments, exactly.
But I think if you have like an established, when you're establishing your relationship, or you can start at any time.
Right. You can
no matter where you're at in your relationship, you can start establishing a relationship of communication. So then over time, I would imagine it wouldn't be as hard.
No, I bring
it would
up
be pretty easy.
I think about it a lot. And then the other one that I'm not very good at that I'm working actively towards is paraphrasing for your partner and then keeping your responses very short as well.
Like, so like if she's the one who's upset? Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you're the one upset, it's different. She should be doing that for you.
Both parts. If I'm angry or upset or whatever it is, I might be like, I'm upset because of this, and trying to keep it short to the point so that person can listen and process that little bit.
Okay, so I think listening, I mean, is a huge thing too, because I think a lot of times like we're back to kind of the conversation about when women are saying, I need this, or can you listen to me? I think because I think men take that, their ego doesn't take that well. So for men, like how do they get to a place where they're not feeling judged? They're not saying, oh, she just judges me all the time, or, you know.
Why are you laughing?
Because nothing. You know, like, is that something that happens where men, like, if she's approaching you with something, like, it's like your ego gets bruised a little bit?
Absolutely, I think that.
And so then you respond like, no. Is that why men respond like, you know, that's not how you feel, or that's not what's going on? Is it that, or is it you're hiding something?
I think it's a combination of two things. So, like,
Talk to me.
Tell me everything. I haven't been in a lot of relationships in my life, really, honestly.
Yeah, but you have the long-term.
I have one really long-term. Yeah. So where I think that, and I'm not going to actually speak on behalf of other men because I don't know. I'm going to speak on behalf of myself.
That's what we should be doing. Yeah.
Well, but I think it's interesting to do both. I love exploring both concepts. This one I think I need to definitely ground in myself.
Okay.
So when that happens, my immediate internal reaction is going to be, oh my gosh, they're going to find out I'm not that cool, I'm not that great. She's not going to like me anymore. I can't lose her. I want her to like me. She's so amazing. What do I do? Okay, be cool, dude, be cool. Pretend it's not a thing.
Right.
That might be a thought that comes up. Or she's pointing something out. Ooh, cover it up, cover it up, cover it up. That could be a second thought.
Okay.
Or number 3, she's bringing this up. Man, I hate it when she brings this up. It's not that big of a deal, not really.
Maybe it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But she needs to figure that out.
Now, those are the things I feel.
Okay.
I don't actually try not to behave that way. And obviously, you can talk to my previous partner to get that insight.
We should get them on.
Yeah, she'll give you some insight.
Let's get her in.
I try not to ever react that way. I just try to feel it and acknowledge it and experience it and be like, great, cool, I'm feeling this way.
Okay.
Cool, I'm feeling this way. Hey, you know what though? But my whole point, and this is going to sound kind of maybe cheesy, but when I'm in a relationship, I'm all in. So if someone brings this up, I'm going to be like, okay, this is a problem. I don't want this to get any bigger. Let's talk about it right now.
So that's really good.
Yeah, well, I just know, having seen my parents' relationship fall apart, how little things become really big things really quickly.
Yeah.
And especially if it's someone I'm with, I care a lot about them. I care a lot about people in general. I think people are really important. I love my friends. I'm a very sensitive person, like I mentioned. So if someone brings it up, I'm like, oh gosh, what did I do that affected this? I may not have been aware.
Yeah.
But if someone's bringing it up, I really try to just pause
Yeah.
and listen and be like,
think
okay,
that's good.
with the intent of curiosity. And because they may not know why I did it, they're definitely going to have an interpretation of why. Just be curious about, like, for example, if I did X, they might be like, this means that you really don't care about me.
Yes, I'm definitely guilty of that.
Yeah, and so I'm going, okay, what did I do?
Yeah.
Let me talk about that. Let me listen about what I did. That's important. And then let me listen to, oh, wait, what did you interpret out of that? And those are two, even though it's one thing, you think it's one conversation, it's really two. And once I get or I understand what I did, then I go in and figure out what it meant. And what I learned early on in my relationship was that while I'm going to be quick to try to clarify and clear my name and be like, I was fraud, that was a fraud, that wasn't what happened. It really isn't about that. The best way to prove yourself innocent is by listening and being like, oh yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, because I would initially jump at trying to defend myself.
Yeah.
I'm very well.
Or say you're crazy.
Are you? Yeah, I would never. No, I mean that.
Well, I mean, I've been told that I'm
you don't say that.
ridiculous and I'm crazy and I don't know what I'm thinking.
You can't say that to women, especially just because I think that no one wants to be told that, and I think women are very. And again, this is how I was raised. I think women are very, very insightful. I think they see things that a lot of times guys don't see things before we see them, understand us maybe even better than we want to realize, and they know our bad habits, unfortunately. And as guys, we want to be perfect for a woman. So the fact that she knows all this stuff is like troublesome, and you're like, ooh, I wish she didn't know everything, but she does.
She does, whether you say it or not.
Right.
She knows.
And so that's why I would never say like you're crazy, because it's like she probably is right. I just can't handle it at the moment, but I'm gonna like slow down.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. If you don't want to look at that at the moment, if you can't handle it at the moment, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
It's frustrating.
And I think that's kind of the way I look at it. Like, I try to acknowledge all those emotions because they pop up. It's just that I also know that this relationship is worth it. It's important to be there and to try to work it out. So I've been, I think, able to figure that out through the workshops that I've attended. I've also attended a lot of business workshops that talk to you about how you're your own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And if you want to grow your business, you have to, conquer your own demons first. So I think that's how I'm going to workshop it. And then if that's still not enough, then I really try to figure out like, what's the story around it? Because if it's a big problem that we talked about, we went through the steps that I talked about, and it's still an issue, that means there's something else. And that's when, obviously, I'll say as a guy, it's hard.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, I've spent a lot of energy just talking.
Yeah, I'm feeling drained right now, like energetically. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, do you want to go play basketball?
Yeah.
Like, do you want to go do? Like, 'cause I don't think girls only want to talk about relationships, but if there's an issue that isn't resolved,
Right.
they will want to figure it out,
Exactly.
and then that's when it gets really exhausting.
And I think that what helped me kind of uncover this was then the story around it. So it's like,
Yeah.
that's the third dimension of this whole situation is like, number one is the thing that happened, number two, how it was interpreted, and three, what's the story around the situation? Like, what's the story that's been occurring? Oh, you've been doing this for this long. And as soon as guys hear it, we're like, oh, you remember everything, really, huh? Like that detail. But what most guys are missing.
Wait, what?
You know, like whenever they bring up, well, 4 years ago when we were here and here, you said this and this.
Oh, so I'm not the only one who does that?
Everyone does it.
Okay.
And I think I would say women in general do it more often.
Okay.
And the way that mostly I first heard it was like, man, there's like a tally system going on.
Yeah.
I'm not keeping track. And then I've done it as well where I bring up this thing and I go, well, it's not the thing that's happening that I'm upset about. It's now I've created a story and I've got all these little incidences that support this story. So then you're like, okay, well, what's happening? I talked to you about what I did wrong and I apologize. You told me what your interpretation was and that was wrong. I apologize. And you're still mad. What's up? And then they're like, oh, well, it's because of this thing. And you realize, oh, there's a story around this whole situation. And that's when you really have to workshop that story. And you go, oh, that's really fascinating. And like you said, it's not a lot to calm that anxiety.
No, it does. It doesn't.
It doesn't. I think what's tricky then is once you do it, this work that I'm talking about, then being like, I want to make a change and I may not be good at it right away. And that's really when you have to lean on your partner and say, can you give me grace and forgiveness? Because I'm going to try. Now I'm aware of it. I didn't realize this was a habit. Now I've got to figure some other stuff out in my life because what you said is going to affect a lot of areas of my life. Can you be patient with me while I kind of workshop this stuff out? And that's tough because you want to see, as a guy, you want to see the change tomorrow.
And women probably have that, much have that expectation. And that's what I like always come back to. For me, you know, in my relationships moving forward in my life, and I've tried to learn this in the last few years, don't do it well, but really that grace piece is important for both people, because if you can look at yourself as someone who's not all there yet, like women do this to our men, like we were like, you have to be perfect, you have to, you know, make sure I'm never hurt. And the fact is that we have to accept that we are going to get hurt. If the person we're with is worth it, we'll stick it out. We'll work on forgiveness even when it's hard. But if he's working on it, like there's going to be so much more grace around it for that person, as opposed to if they're denying it, or maybe, you know, maybe she is wrong, you know, and she has to be willing to look at that too. But that comes up in the conversation, and maybe with third-party help or something like that if it's like a big issue, right? Not the little things, but.
Okay, so to keep the conversation, I agree.
But I think for just the female perspectives is she has to be willing to like let him fail if he's trying.
Say that one more time, because I think I liked hearing that. I'm sure other people are going to like hearing that.
I think women have to let their men fail, especially, I mean, it's beautiful to have a man who's actually trying to listen to the relationship and trying to like value what she's saying and seeing that it's like a good thing for him to sort of growth. Because I think women are always wanting our men to be the best version of themselves. Like we love you, we know what you're capable of, but we will see it, like we'll see your shadow sides, we'll see your flaws, and we want those to be cured, because it'll be the better version of yourself, and it'll be the better version of the relationship. But in that journey together, you know, she has to not expect perfection from him, because then I think that's when, I mean, I've definitely failed at this, and I think that's when men say, forget it, I'm not like, this isn't worth it to me anymore. And so she has to be doing that self-analysis as well of how can I be giving him more love and more grace, even when, you know, he's not perfect.
So
he's not my perfect dad.
Yeah, okay.
Which my dad isn't perfect, but like a lot of girls like would compare their.
Oh yeah, of course. You want to have the man be like the dad or fulfill the role the dad didn't fulfill.
Yeah, one of the two.
One of the two. Okay, so to keep the conversation going, I'm curious as we start wrapping up. Yeah, we've talked a lot about the man point of view.
Sure.
From the female point of view, what is it that you don't want to do that maybe you end up doing for the man, or what is it that you want the man to do in a relationship?
Oh, and then like why she takes over?
Yeah.
I mean, I think just specifically regarding protecting the relationship and keeping it like solid. The question was, what do I want them to do or not want them to do?
Want them to do it.
Want them to do. Check in with the relationship. You know, it doesn't have to be every day, but like maybe there's an agreement. Like we, you know, on the first Thursday of every month, we talk about how things are going.
Check in on the relationship.
Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit on that?
Are you setting me up for something?
No.
Are you really curious?
Yeah. Check in. Mind blown.
Okay, think about it. Like when you're doing a project, you're making a film. Okay, so let me see if I can illustrate this. So you start out with, or like, so you're painting a painting. You start out with a blank canvas, right? You start putting some colors on there, right? You have a picture of what you want this to be. You start putting some paint on there. You're going in a direction. It's not fully there yet. But what you do is you take a step back, you know, and you take a step back, you get a perspective from how your painting is coming. Then you go back into the painting, you make some adjustments, things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
So like checking in on the relationship is like, you're in the relationship, you're doing your life, you've got other things going on in your life besides just your significant other. You've got friends, you've got family, you've got work, you've got all sorts of demands, right? And other things you're involved in. But it's a beautiful thing to have him be the one to initiate. She always will want to know what's going on, but to have him say, you know, let's do it. Like, even if he's only capable of once a month, you know, like if he's learning all this, like, okay, the first Sunday of every month at 3:00, that's our time where we sit and we talk about the relationship and we have fun with it. Let's create like a little thing around it.
You talk about the relationship?
And just like how it's going.
Wow. That's so crazy.
Why is this so weird to you? Just hearing you talk, this would seem like it's like obvious for you, someone like you.
I guess I've never been cognitive of it.
Okay.
Like I've always done it, I guess, but I never thought of it as being a thing to do.
Or even if it's not even once a month, but like literally if you sense something's up, like just figure it out.
Yeah, no, I've done that. I do that a lot.
Yeah.
But I never thought to give it dimension or like a awareness of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but now that you bring it up, I go, oh, I've done that a lot. Yeah, to follow up, holidays are a good time. Just thinking about the times I've done it.
Yeah, just to figure it out.
Road trips or whatever extended, or even just reaching out to someone regularly every day in the morning, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think I didn't realize that was even a thing. Okay, let's keep going. So number one was and that's brilliant, beautiful. We could package that and sell it.
It's like checking in with your mom every so often. Like check it. I mean, it's a different dynamic, but it's or just like I think it's easy to explain it from a business context.
For me, it is. Because
yeah,
that's how
because
my
you're
brain
used to
works.
working on projects.
Yeah.
You have to like. There's
Check-in
increments.
points. Yeah.
You know, there's
So
milestones.
That might look like, hey, what's up, Erin? How's the relationship going?
I think it could be that. You could just figure out what it looks like between the two of you. She might not want to do it too much, but she might be someone that really means a lot to her. So create some fun little thing that's just yours that you do together, you know, like, oh, well, you know, and you honor that time together. It's not a low priority. It's like if it's the first Sunday of every month at 3:00, like you don't schedule anything. I mean, sure,
Life
things
happens,
come up,
yeah.
right? And there has to be. But if the foundation is sort of that, then when the thing comes up, it's like not a big deal. She's not going to go freak out on you. She's going to be like, oh yeah, like let's meet tomorrow if you can at 3 instead. But I think it's like, yeah, or like, okay, well, you figure out like if you like to get a beer, if you like to have wine, if you like to like watch your favorite show and then talk, if you want to go, you know, do whatever it is together.
Some kind of activity together,
yeah,
and then check in on the relationship.
Yeah, and like specifically around, you know, and getting to it. You know, don't sit down to watch the show and then be like, talk about the show and that was it. No, like have your fun time, your favorite show that you watch together.
Model some of this conversation for me. What would it look like?
Model it?
Yeah, like I mean, the way that I think of it is, for example, how are you doing? Again, how are you, Erin? What's going on? How was your week?
That's a little, I mean,
is that too indirect?
It's a little, I don't know. I guess it would just maybe something like, you know, yeah, I'm just like checking in with how you feel about the relationship. Anything I'm doing that's sort of bothering you? Is there anything that you're loving that I'm doing? I think maybe starting out would be like, what do I love that you're doing? Like, this is what I do with my kiddo. We're like, let's talk about like 3 things we're grateful for, and if there's any burdens you have.
Got it.
So we start, and I do this in meetings as well. Like, tell me one thing good, like if I'm running a meeting, like tell me the best thing that happened to you so far this week. And then is there something you just need to get off your chest?
Yeah.
And then in this context, it'd be specifically about the relationship. And like maybe even do a meditation before together or a prayer so that your hearts are in the right space to be able to receive and hear, like we were talking about earlier. It's not like it could take an hour. And,
no, I understand. I'm not.
You know, it doesn't have to be like
a whole thing.
Like a whole thing, because I can know like a lot of guys are like, oh, that sounds awful. You would be surprised at how much benefit you get from your relationship as a man if you're willing to commit sort of that time for her.
And there are men who I think are really happy to do that. I think they just
Yeah.
don't know the language, the words. And it seems like it's not about the words or the right thing to say. It's just about the intent to discuss.
Yeah, because she'll think you're like super cute if you like fumble it or whatever.
Likely
but you'll get used to it. She'll be like, oh my gosh, but he's here.
Fumbling it as we speak. Oh, fumbled over. No,
Yeah.
I think, I guess with time and practice, you get better at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you could even say, what kind of questions? I'm here and I want to do this. It's about your heart. Like you can be there, but like she'll know. She'll know if you're just showing up to get it to like so that you can get back to everything else, or if you're actually showing up. So it doesn't have to be perfect if your heart is there.
Got it.
And then you just like figure it out together.
Okay. Great.
Like, hey, I'm here. I want to check in on the relationship. Some guys will be better at it. And some guys, like, what should I ask you right now? And if she's like, you should know what to ask me, then be like, okay, let's get through that attitude.
Right. Yeah.
Like, because that's not helpful.
Right.
So let's both of us be helpful here. And then she has to say, well, what would you like me to ask you? Most likely be like, I don't know, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Well,
I didn't know anything was wrong until you said it wasn't wrong.
Everything's hunky-dory. Okay.
So.
And then, so the question initially was like, what is it that you know, from your point of view, what women like to do or will do in the relationship to fix it if they have to? And it seems like they'll step in, the checking in is as a thing that the guy can do. Okay, then the other point, I guess, there, or thing that I've observed in all this context of this conversation is, what is it that is a marker for either the man or the female where someone's taking on too much of a burden that they don't want to take on? Like, it seems like women will be louder, they'll speak up.
Yeah,
It's one
she'll
thing.
nag, she'll pick, she'll push,
So that's an indicator.
she'll get really annoying. From a man's perspective, she'll get real annoying.
So that's an indicator that I, as a man, may not be fulfilling the masculine role, or
Yeah.
whatever. However, the roles have been defined. That role is not being defined, and this person expects you to fulfill that role. So that's a jumping off point to some of these conversations that we've outlined. Yeah. Okay, and then I guess to maybe bring that to life, a couple of times we've been talking about stuff, and you'll be like, I don't know, you figure it out, or I've told you about something. And I'll tell you, hey, this person said this, and I said to that person, I'll let you take the lead. And she was like, no, I don't want to take the lead. Tell me about that stuff.
You figure, like when I tell you, figure it out, Diego?
Yeah.
Because you need to learn to figure it out. Like, she will probably usually know what to do. She'll know how to, sometimes if she's super emotional, she doesn't know. She needs to get through some of the strong feelings that she might be having. But if you were to say, what do you want me to do? In some cases, she, like, especially if you've been in a relationship for a while, like, there is a point where you kind of should know by now, like, what would be helpful here?
Yeah.
Don't play dumb.
Don't
You're
play
not
dumb.
dumb.
Yeah.
You are really intelligent. If you were in business,
How do you solve this? Okay.
how would you approach this? And it's not all business, but I feel like we have to use a lot of business illustrations with men, because I remember sometimes I've been like, how do you get anything done at the office with the way you communicate? Like, it's like,
Right.
Anyway, I don't know if I answered
No,
the
you
question.
did.
But like,
Well, part of why I was curious is because I was just wondering, what does it feel like for a woman when you have to take on those roles? Like, when I had said something like...
it's just draining.
Draining.
It's draining. You feel alone. You
Feel
feel
alone.
frustrated. You feel not appreciated. You feel used.
Used.
Mm-hmm.
So over an extended period of time,
Yeah.
if the woman is feeling that way, she's taking on a lot of the masculine roles, she's probably going to want to get out or
Or she's going to make your life miserable.
make your life miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from the guy's point of view, when a woman takes on a masculine role more than what I would be comfortable with, or doesn't take on maybe a feminine role, I would feel like frustrated, like I'm doing
Frustrated?
frustrated.
Sorry, I'm teasing you.
Yeah, no, I thought I said frustrated, but frustrated, I would
Oh,
feel...
you have to get your...
Yeah, my little...
There, your D. There you
Make
go.
sure that, okay. I would feel upset. I would feel annoyed. I would feel like I'm the one doing all the work.
Yeah.
So after a while, if I feel like I'm the male in the relationship and my female counterpart is not taking on some of her responsibilities, I would just wonder, like, why am I in this relationship in the first place?
And when you say her responsibilities, like, I mean, I guess we should probably wrap this up pretty soon. I don't know how long we've been talking about. Like, her responsibilities, like, kind of going back to what you said, like, it to be like the intuitive, or the sort of a little bit of a guide, or a little bit of a
Yeah, guide, but not even that specific, but just being a partner. I think overall,
Got it.
the idea there is a partner in crime, so to speak, in what we're up to.
Partner in life.
In life, yeah. I like crime because I think antics, I think a silent movie, we're robbing a bank together.
And I think life, it's beautiful, it's full.
Okay,
it's
yeah. Either metaphors function to accomplish this thing, but the idea here is that they're a partner in what we're trying to accomplish together. So if we're trying to get married, buy a house, have kids, have a partner.
Or she has a career, a thing she's trying to do in her career, you have a thing you're trying to do in yours. How do you figure that out?
Right, and if I feel like as a man I'm doing all the work, even her work, then I go, okay, that's fine, I can do that, but then I need to step out of my way and I can't do all these other things. I can't be available for conversations. I don't have time for anything because I'm taking on your role and my role so we can get here. And eventually from the man's standpoint, you just feel frustrated. You feel taken for granted. You feel like...
So it's the same, like both sides feel the end result is the same.
The end result is the
taken
same.
For granted, feeling not appreciative. I know men really need to be appreciated and need to feel like they are believed in and they're
I think
encouraged.
Respected too,
Yeah,
and
respected.
I think that's something that will vary from man to man, but I think men seek to be respected by their counterpart to some degree, and when we feel like we're not being respected, we'll allow that for a while, but then resentment builds and we're like, this isn't worth it anymore.
What do you mean respected though?
Like, I messed up. Talk to me as an adult. I messed up. I get it.
Oh, instead of pull the mom, like...
Don't, you can do some of that, but if you do it all the time, then as a guy, I'm going, yeah, I know I messed up. Help me out here, or help me understand how I messed up. I didn't realize I messed up. But if it's a constant sort of experience where you're like, okay, this person is not helping me out, they're making my life miserable, you start wondering, is there another person who would make my life less miserable?
Yeah, it just feels like a circle.
Yeah.
Because it feels like she is thinking the same thing. And she's like, well, if he would just do that, then it'd free me to do this.
Yeah.
And he's saying, so
what's the solve?
Conversation.
I think
intentional moments, like I was mentioning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's a tool. Love is a remedy.
Love is a remedy.
And I think
is that our thing? Love is the remedy.
We have a little theme song. Love is the remedy. I don't know, I have to figure it out. But anyway, so I think the solve is communication, workshopping. Okay, now let's...
And like understanding that it's worth it, and it can be so powerful and fuel the rest of your life if this is done well.
Yeah.
And both bring strength to the relationship.
And sometimes having a third party is a big part of that.
I think
when
so.
You're at a point where you can't...
Like a lot of men won't go see or even read books or anything like that.
To me, it's wild sauce. I think...
Wild sauce.
Yeah, my life experiences, you have to work with a counselor, a therapist in general, and especially in relationships if it's not going well. And I think that we have this idea that we're somehow fully equipped to do that, and I go, how? Yeah. Guys think like, oh, I'm going to go to a therapist, they're going to do the work for me, I can do the work. What they don't realize is when you go into therapy or counseling, they're not doing the work, you're doing the work.
That's good. That's a good therapist who makes you do the work.
Exactly. They're giving you some tools, some insights, they're reflecting some things, and they help you understand things in a way where you're doing the work. And I saw a huge benefit as a business owner doing that for my business.
Really?
So it was really the transformative experience from me making so much money a year to more money a year. And
That's great.
I was like, hey, this works.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, I need coaching. So when it came to just personal like therapy, I was like, yeah, I know it works. And now that I've been in therapy, it's been great. I feel like I have a personal trainer. I had a personal trainer before, and
like if you have someone kind of coaching you through, you know, a basketball coach, or if you're on a team or something.
Exactly, I already know the thing to do, and I have to do it, but they're helping you ways to do the thing in a different way.
Or if like I did that wrong, I screwed up. How could I go back and
fix it?
This
Yeah. So I'm a big proponent of that, and whether that's
it's a luxury. I mean.
It is, yeah, it is.
But there's like a lot of good info out there right now. So
there is, and you can also find other ways of doing it. I think volunteering is great. But okay, so now we're going to wrap it up here.
Yeah, because you and I have lots of words. We could talk.
This is great. Well, I think let's just recap for everyone. We talked about masculinity and femininity. I think for me the takeaways were, and I'm curious to hear your takeaways. Basically, those roles have to be fulfilled. The definition seems to really vary, so it's good to talk about it. It seems like when those roles aren't being fulfilled, one of the partners will step in and fulfill it, but over time resentment will occur.
Yeah.
The resentment occurs and is illustrated in different bits of behavior, but it's there. And the solve for that is to communicate and possibly bring in a third party if you don't have the tools or the wherewithal to figure it out.
Yeah, because like how many people actually did have that modeled really well? I know you didn't have it modeled really well. And in my family dynamic, there was a lot of like fighting and making up and fighting and making up. So those patterns are like sort of ingrained in us, and we take that in. So we might not have the tools, but to be open to learning the tools is super important.
Open to learning the tools.
Yeah.
And I think you do
and
that
applying them
through love, unconditional love, right?
Well, seeking out the truth of what that really is, and understanding it for yourself, and then being able to give that to somebody else is huge.
Yeah. I would say that's how.
Oh, God's unconditional love.
God's unconditional
That's a
love.
lifelong journey.
Why love is the remedy.
Cool, Diego.
Right?
Good wrap up.
Good wrap up. All right, so that's our show for today.
That was good.
That was great. I think we got a lot accomplished. If you got value out of this, please give us feedback or
what are your thoughts?
follow us.
Sure
You agree, you disagree wildly with either of us. We're open to
You're wrong if you disagree.
Yeah, we're going to talk it out if you disagree. No, we're grateful for your time, your energy. We're really curious to hear about your thoughts. Our intention here is for us to workshop some of our things or process our things, and in doing so, perhaps provide that platform for other people to listen. So we're open. This is a conversation we're willing to engage in. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll be back. We're going to be workshopping other ideas. We'll have other guests on to tell us some of their amazing stories and connect during this.
And I'm excited for us to process other topics. Yeah, because I think this is just
we have like a list.
A tip of the iceberg of things to come.
So thank you so much.
Thank you and thank you, Erin, for
thank
opening
you,
up. Yeah, you're the best. Yeah. Cut there. Good job, Erin.
That was good.
Yeah.